Imagine looking into your bathroom cabinet right now. There is likely a small brown bottle hiding in plain sight. You probably bought it at your local pharmacy for around $15. Its only job in the house has been to disinfect an accidentally scraped knee or a minor paper cut, and since then, it has just been gathering dust. But what if I told you that this completely ignored, ultra-cheap liquid is actually the ultimate cheat code for your garden? It is no coincidence that the aisles of your favorite gardening store are completely silent about this fact. Giant agrochemical brands and major retailers are making big money selling $23 chemicals. They have absolutely no financial incentive to admit that something costing mere pennies can do the exact same job, if not better. Over the past 25 years, I have watched gardeners pour their hard-earned money into expensive treatments only to fail. Watching beautifully tended gardens wither away, I knew this absurdly simple secret was just waiting to be used. But today we are going to change the game. Before we dive into this rabbit hole, please leave your USDA hardiness zone or your location in the comments. A trick that works in sunny Florida might need adjustments in frosty Minnesota. And whatever you do, stay with me throughout this journey. Halfway through, I will reveal a root rot rescue operation. We are going to bring plants back from the brink of death, plants that 99% of people would throw in the trash, using something cheaper than your morning coffee. You absolutely do not want to miss this. To truly harness this power, we need to look at the incredible science of what hydrogen peroxide actually is. When you pick up a standard 3% solution at the pharmacy, you are essentially holding plain water that has been supercharged with one extra oxygen atom. That is the whole magic trick. While regular water is H2O, this substance is H2O2, two hydrogen atoms and two oxygen atoms. That single unstable extra oxygen atom turns a harmless liquid into a botanical superhero. The moment hydrogen peroxide touches organic matter, whether it is the cell wall of an invading fungus, the squishy body of a pest larva, or toxic bacteria, it rapidly releases that extra oxygen in a violent microexplosion. This aggressive oxidation completely destroys the structural integrity of these pathogens on contact. And the crucial point that chemical companies hate is that once it finishes its destructive work, it breaks down perfectly into pure water and breathable oxygen. There are no weird toxic spills, no chemical buildup in your beloved soil, and no mysterious residues left on your vegetables. Just water and air. This rapid breakdown is the core of every trick I am going to show you. Keep this concept firmly in your mind, as it perfectly explains why this method is incomparably superior to the synthetic solutions sitting on store shelves. Let's start with the silent garden killer. Root rot. I am certain that most of you have battled this nightmare for years without even knowing what was killing your plants. Have you ever seen a beautifully thriving plant inexplicably turn yellow from the bottom up and begin to wilt? If you couldn't find the reason, the insidious work of root rot was likely destroying the underground system long before any visible damage appeared above the soil. Root rot thrives in anoxic or oxygen-deprived environments. If you accidentally overwater or have dense, moisture-trapping clay soil with poor drainage, all the precious oxygen is suffocated out of the soil. That is like inviting nasty anaerobic fungi, such as Pythium, Fusarium, and Phytophthora, to crash the party. These subterranean monsters gnaw away at the waterlogged roots. They destroy the plant's ability to absorb nutrients and water, creating the bizarre illusion that the plant is actually wilting and thirsty, even though it is sitting in a puddle of mud. Enter our superhero, a diluted hydrogen peroxide solution. When this liquid hits the soil, two massive changes happen simultaneously. First, those volatile free radical oxygen atoms instantly eliminate the oxygen-hating pathogens. It is pure poison to them. Second, and this is the amazing part, it physically re-aerates the suffocating soil. It injects a massive dose of pure oxygen into the root zone, acting as the life support the dying root system needs to recover. This is not a waiting game. Many gardeners witness their plants perk up and visibly recover in just a matter of days. I have personally brought delicate indoor tropicals, sprawling raised beds, tomatoes, and prize potted plants back from total ruin with a simple soil drench. Compare this elegant solution to commercial fungicides, where you have to read terrifying hazard labels twice just to use them safely. For a general root health boost, stir 4 tablespoons of standard 3% hydrogen peroxide from the brown bottle into 1 liter of water. That is the magic potion. When the top layer of potting soil is slightly dry, pour it over the soil and let it dry out completely before watering again. Hold on, because later I will detail an extreme intensive care rescue protocol for severe rot. Let's talk honestly about foliar diseases, because you deserve to know the truth. When powdery mildew covers your pumpkins like snow, rust spots devastate your prized roses, or leaf blight attacks your tomatoes, your first reaction is to rush out and buy a cure. Retailers will gladly hand you a $20 bright blue or green spray bottle. It will magically suppress the problem for 3 days, and then the nightmare returns. That is not a cure. It is a calculated business model. However, a perfectly mixed hydrogen peroxide spray acts as a devastating contact weapon against all these infections. These diseases are living, breathing entities. Powdery mildew is an active fungal organism. Leaf rust is a crawling pathogen. The explosive oxidation of hydrogen peroxide doesn't just annoy them. It physically shatters their cell walls upon impact. It utterly destroys them instantly. Best of all, because it immediately turns into water and oxygen, it leaves absolutely no toxic sludge to clog the plant's delicate tissues or ruin the natural ecosystem. Now, to be completely transparent, this is strictly a contact sport. Hydrogen peroxide kills what it touches, but it is not systemic. It does not travel through the plant's internal vascular system like some harsh chemicals promise to do. This means your spraying technique must be flawless. You need to drench the hidden undersides of the leaves, the twisting stems, and the very top of the plant. Spores are sneaky. They love to colonize the undersides to avoid the sun's UV rays. If you only lightly miss the top, the disease will win. Grab a reliable pump sprayer, ditch the weak spray bottles, and coat everything meticulously. For routine defense, mix half a cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide into 1 gallon of water. If you already have an active outbreak, step it up to a stronger brew. Spray the plant with 8 to 12 tablespoons of hydrogen peroxide per gallon for 3 consecutive days. Then take a day off and follow up with a completely different preventative armor, like diluted neem oil, a baking soda mixture, or sulfur to stop reinfection. This smart rotational strategy is the true secret to ending the disease cycle. Our next target is pests. Let's start with the pesky fungus gnats. If you have ever kept potted plants, you know these tiny black annoyances hovering over the soil. They look innocent, but they are actually quite sinister. The flying adults are merely a nuisance, but the real threat lives underground. Fungus gnat larvae crawl through the top layer of damp soil, ruthlessly devouring organic matter and preying on young plant roots. To a fragile new seedling, the larvae's feeding frenzy looks exactly like root rot. The plant turns yellow, wilts, and eventually gives up. Sure, you can hang sticky traps to catch the flyers, but that does absolutely nothing for the root-munching larvae underground. A hydrogen peroxide soil drench is a swift and brutal execution for these larvae. That intense blast of pure oxygen physically destroys them, breaking their life cycle at its most destructive stage. The adults will soon die off naturally, leaving them unable to lay viable eggs. For this tactical assault, mix 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide with 4 parts regular water. First, let the top inch of the soil dry out well. This lures the larvae to crawl up to the surface. Then drench it with the solution. You will actually be able to hear and see the soil fizzing and bubbling. That is the sweet sound of oxidation eliminating the threat. Repeat this attack every 5 days for about 3 weeks until the adults are gone. For above-ground vampires like aphids or spider mites, half a cup of this spray per gallon makes the leaves incredibly hostile to them. These are soft-bodied invaders, and even highly diluted hydrogen peroxide acts like acid on their delicate exoskeletons. It might not knock them down as instantly as commercial insecticidal soap, but regular hydrogen peroxide treatments create a localized environment that pests absolutely despise. It eliminates the attractive conditions that drew them in the first place. Let's take a breather here. The smiling employee at the big box store is not going to share this knowledge with you. They are reading a corporate script, pushing high-margin products that pay the bills. Even glossy gardening magazines are funded by advertisements from those very same chemical conglomerates. If you are still watching, it means you are not just playing in the dirt. You are a serious grower. You are probably tired of emptying your wallet every spring on flashy bottles that never fully solve the problem. We are here because of a thirst for raw, unfiltered knowledge. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, do it right now. It costs absolutely nothing. Every week, we shatter industry illusions and bring you the honest, glaring truths that no one else dares to say. Stay focused because we are just getting started. Have you ever marveled at how much greener and more vibrant your garden looks right after a fierce thunderstorm? Not just a boring drizzle, but a truly cinematic downpour. You probably gave all the credit to the water. But here is a fascinating piece of nature's puzzle. Violent rainwater is actually loaded with dissolved oxygen and trace amounts of natural hydrogen peroxide. Intense lightning literally creates ozone and hydrogen in the sky, raining it down onto your yard. Plants have evolved over millions of years absorbing this peroxide-laced rain. That massive growth spurt you witness is largely fueled by a massive oxygenation event. It breathes pure, life-giving air deep into compacted soil that was struggling to breathe on its own. When you gently mix our 4-tablespoon maintenance brew into your watering can, you are literally playing the role of a lightning storm. This oxygenation supercharges the roots' metabolism, making them far more efficient at stockpiling nutrients. This is an absolute game changer for potted plants suffering from sealed, compacted soil or raised beds suffocated by heavy clay. If you have a plant that is merely stubbornly surviving rather than thriving, root oxygen starvation is the very first suspect you should investigate. Think back to that heartbreaking moment when you planted seeds and stared at the dirt for 2 weeks, only for nothing to happen. You wait a third week, and it is still a ghost town. When you finally dig them up, you find the seeds slightly swollen, but sitting there completely inactive. Sure, temperature or depth could be the culprit, but a massively overlooked reason is that seeds are born dirty. Commercial seeds are often covered in invisible bacteria and microscopic fungal spores. When you place them in a cozy, warm, and moist seed tray, those bad guys wake up first and literally eat the young embryo before it can even stretch its legs. Soaking your seeds in a hydrogen peroxide solution before sowing delivers 2 miracles. First, it ruthlessly sterilizes the outer shell of the seed. The oxidation burns away all the spores and bacteria while keeping the precious life inside perfectly safe. The bad guys die, and the baby plant survives. Second, and this is the magic of gardening, it physically softens the seed's hard armor. In the wild, seeds wait for a harsh winter or a trip through a bird's digestive tract to break that shell. Our magical soaking process mimics that entire process in minutes. Water penetrates faster, which can skyrocket germination speeds by days or even weeks. This is especially true for stubborn, old, or hard-shelled seeds. Stir 1 teaspoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide into a cup of water, soak the seeds for up to 30 minutes, and plant them immediately after taking them out. Here is a cold reality check. Your favorite gardening tool might be a serial killer. If you prune a rose bush infected with black spot on Tuesday and don't clean your pruning shears, you have just doomed the next plant you touch. And what about that gorgeous ceramic pot that suffered from root rot last summer? Rinsing it with a garden hose did absolutely nothing. Invisible assassins are still clinging to the inner walls, patiently waiting for their next victim. Hydrogen peroxide is the deadliest non-toxic cleaner in your arsenal. It instantly vaporizes bacteria, aggressive viruses, and fungal spores on contact. After every cut on a diseased plant, wipe your pruning shear blades with undiluted 3% hydrogen peroxide. For pots, drench them with a 50-50 mix of water and 3% hydrogen peroxide. Let it bubble vigorously for 10 minutes and then rinse. This is far superior to bleach. Bleach is toxic, coats roots in harmful chlorine, and slowly corrodes expensive metal tools. Hydrogen peroxide leaves absolutely no chemical residue. And speaking of recycling, stop throwing away expensive bags of potting soil just because you are afraid of what might be lurking inside. Gardening stores love it when you do that. You can easily recycle old, dead plant soil by purifying it with your favorite brown bottle. Old tomato dirt or mystery bag soil is often a hotbed for dormant fungi, armies of nematodes, and insect eggs. A hydrogen peroxide drench acts as a complete reset button. Mix 1 cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide per gallon of water and drench every inch of that old soil. Let it sit for a day or two. By then, all the chemical reactions will have dissipated, leaving you with nothing but beautiful, oxygen-rich, sterilized soil. Whether you are starting delicate indoor seedlings or filling a massive raised bed, you are securing top-tier protection for literally pennies. If your mind is blown right now, pause for a second and think about the YouTube system. This algorithm is not your friend. It doesn't automatically serve you good content. It strictly tracks your clicks to feed you more of the exact same thing. If you absorb all this golden information and just scroll past, the algorithm will bury our next broadcast. Hit the subscribe button right now. It is free, takes half a second, and guarantees this revolutionary gardening intel stays pinned to your feed. For high-tech growers bringing the garden indoors with hydroponics and aquaponics, hydrogen peroxide isn't just a neat trick. It is a lifeline. Hydroponic systems constantly circulate warm, nutrient-rich water. That is like a luxury resort for massive algae blooms, slimy biofilms, and pythium root rot. While soil needs gentle aeration, water requires harsh, direct oxygenation. Adding hydrogen peroxide to your reservoir intensely saturates the water with oxygen, pushing root performance to its absolute peak. At the same time, the aggressive oxidation makes it physically impossible for algae to cling to the walls or tubes. Rather than shocking the system all at once, trickle in about 2 to 3 nanomoles of 3% hydrogen peroxide per liter of fresh water every few days for stable, low-level protection. But a major warning, keep it away from beneficial bacterial inoculants or helpful nematodes. Hydrogen peroxide is a blind killer and will wipe out the good guys right alongside the bad. Now let's look at the giants of the garden. Trees. Ruining a flower is a one-season loss, but losing a tree is like losing decades of time. When a tree is damaged by a storm, nicked by an erratic lawnmower, or cracked by drought, that fresh wound becomes a magnet for opportunistic diseases. Deadly blights, nasty cankers, and ugly crown gall all infiltrate the vital cambium layer through these cuts. Misting that fresh wound with 3% hydrogen peroxide drastically reduces the surface pathogen load. It won't cure a disease that has already penetrated deep into the tree, but it buys the tree crucial, sterilized time to naturally seal its own defenses. Spray it, let it dry, and then keep a close eye out for weird mushroom growth or strange discoloration. If the bark looks diseased without a physical wound, a quick hydrogen peroxide wash can help reduce surface bacteria while you call an arborist. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty practicalities, because using the wrong chemicals can literally turn your garden to ash. I want you to use only standard pharmacy-grade 3% hydrogen peroxide. It only costs a couple of bucks. Ignore the loud voices online hyping up 30% food-grade hydrogen peroxide. That stuff is terrifyingly corrosive. It will melt your skin on contact and burn your plant's leaves to a crisp. If you really want to play with that liquid fire, you must heavily dilute 1 part of the 35% chemical with 11 parts of distilled water just to reach the safe 3% baseline concentration. Skip that math, and you are inviting a botanical disaster. Now let's lock in the recipes. For an invisible shield against disease, your maintenance spray, mix half a cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide per gallon of water. That weak ratio is your everyday armor. If you are facing an active, raging fungal war, increase it to 8 to 12 tablespoons per gallon. This is roughly a 1 to 9 ratio. This is your nuclear option, so do not use it indefinitely. To eliminate soil pests like gnats, mix 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide with 4 parts water. For a thunderstorm oxygen boost, use just 4 tablespoons per liter of water. And for an emergency rot rescue, go strong. 1 part hydrogen peroxide to 2 or 3 parts water. When spraying, treat it like an art form. Always perform a 48-hour patch test on a few leaves a couple of days beforehand to watch out for chemical bleaching, especially on delicate plants like orchids or peace lilies. Never skip the patch test. Also, never spray in the middle of the day. The sun's UV rays will destroy the hydrogen peroxide before it can even work, and the leftover water droplets will act like microscopic magnifying glasses, burning holes right through the leaves. Attack at dawn or late afternoon. Make sure the leaves are completely dry first so you don't ruin your carefully calculated dilution ratio. And remember, coverage matters more than volume. Obsessively coat the undersides because that is where the cowardly spores hide. Spray for 3 consecutive days, take a day off, and switch to a different defensive spray to keep the disease guessing. Here is the surgical rescue operation I promised. To bring a dying plant back from the grave, you must completely remove it from its pot. Shake off all the damp, cursed soil. Take a close look at the root system. Healthy roots are firm and creamy white. Rotting roots look like black or gray mush and give off a swampy, sour smell of death. Grab your pruning shears, sterilize with pure hydrogen peroxide, and ruthlessly cut away all the squishy tissue. Show no mercy. Leaving even a single piece of infected root is like leaving a zombie in your house. The infection will keep spreading. Next, soak the surviving healthy roots in an intensive care bath. A solution of 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 2 or 3 parts water. Let them soak for 5 to 10 minutes. You will witness vigorous bubbling as the oxidation eliminates clinging pathogens and breathes pure oxygen into the surviving cells. Gently pat them dry with a clean towel. Do not rub vigorously. Replant in fresh, highly well-draining soil. Do not recycle the old, cursed soil for this patient. When watering, use the weak 4-tablespoon maintenance brew to maintain a high oxygen state. Moving forward, you must stop overwatering the plant. Only water when the pot physically feels light, and do not force-feed it fertilizer. A recovering patient needs functioning lungs, in this case, roots, long before it needs a massive meal. Many growers panic and ask, will this poison the vegetables I'm going to eat? The answer is an undeniable, echoing no. Remember the chemistry. It breaks down into pure water and oxygen. Absolutely no toxic residue seeps into your tomatoes or lingers in the soil. You can spray your pepper plants and eat from them without any fear of chemicals. Traditional synthetic pesticides require terrifying pre-harvest interval regulations, legally preventing you from eating your own food. Hydrogen peroxide has no such waiting period. That is hard science, not a marketing gimmick. But let's talk about beneficial soil microbes, the good bacteria and friendly fungi. Hydrogen peroxide is a destroyer. It oxidizes both the good and the bad. This is a genuine trade-off. At weak maintenance doses, the impact on good microbes is minimal and temporary. However, when you drench with a strong root rescue solution, you are actively choosing to wipe out part of the microbial city to save the plant's life. You can easily rebuild a healthy biological environment later by layering fresh compost or using rich compost tea on the soil. Think of it like taking antibiotics, an essential intervention with side effects that you can manage later. Now let's lock in your master checklist. This week, even if they aren't sick, use a low-dose solution to oxygenate heavy waterlogged pots. This is the cheapest biological upgrade you can make. When planting seeds, soak them in hydrogen peroxide for 30 minutes to break their defenses and accelerate germination. Meticulously sterilize your pruning shears after every single cut so you don't become a super spreader in your own backyard. Completely disinfect your old pots before the busy spring season, especially if disease swept through last year. Keep a mild preventative spray bottle filled and ready to thoroughly defend high-risk plants like pumpkins and roses every 2 weeks. And the moment you spot the white dust of powdery mildew or the yellow spread of blight, switch to the strong treatment spray for 3 days. Fungi do not negotiate. If you hesitate, you lose the plant. Everything I have explained today is purely focused on helping real growers succeed on real budgets. No fluff, no corporate sponsorships, no hidden agendas. These are the exact battle-tested tactics I use in my own soil. It took me 25 years to cut through the industry lies and realize that a single $1.50 bottle is vastly superior to the endless $30 chemical subscriptions the gardening stores want to trap you in. I have one last favor to ask. Please leave your state or hardiness zone below. I read every comment, and it helps me pinpoint exactly what geographical nightmares this community is battling. Whether it is the swampy humidity of the Deep South, the mossy Pacific Northwest, or the arid Southwest. If you haven't subscribed yet, you are missing out on the most unfiltered gardening knowledge on the internet. Hit the button and forward this to that friend who blows their money replacing dead plants every spring. Now go to your medicine cabinet, grab that little brown bottle, and get ready to revolutionize your garden. If this story has completely changed the way you look at the plants in your garden, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. We are unearthing the gardening truths and history that the world tried to hide. Let's plant a greener future together. The next treasure trove of information will be coming your way soon.